Back in the day, people didn't need 10 ingredients or 3 pans to cook a good meal. One pot was enough. These were the kinds of dishes that got dinner on the table without the stress. Simple, filling, and full of flavor. Most of them started out as everyday food. Some came from tough times like the Great Depression. Others became classics in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, passed down through handwritten recipe cards and family habits. But somewhere along the way, we stopped making them. And honestly, that's a shame. Because these 20 one-pot recipes aren't just easy. They're the kind of food that brings comfort, the kind that makes a house smell like home. In this video, we're digging up those old favorites that were too good to be forgotten. Number 1, hodgepodge soup. There was a time when recipes weren't written down, they were just passed around. Hodgepodge soup is a perfect example of that. Picture the 1930s in a modest American kitchen where waste wasn't an option and creativity was survival. This soup started as a way to use what you had. Chunks of leftover beef from Sunday's roast, maybe a bit of chicken, or if you were lucky, some lamb. Whatever was on hand, it went into the pot. No measuring, no rules, just instinct. But the beauty of this dish was in the vegetables. You'd toss in carrots that were getting soft, a few potatoes with eyes sprouting, half an onion, a handful of peas, cabbage, parsnips, green beans. It didn't matter. The more variety, the better the flavor. And it all simmered slowly in a broth, often homemade, sometimes from a bouillon cube, until everything melded together into a comforting, rich, soul-warming bowl of real food. It wasn't just delicious, it was nourishing in every sense. It fed families during hard times, filled cold homes with steam and savory smells, and turned scraps into something that felt like a gift. It changed every time. No two pots were the same, but the idea never changed. Make something beautiful from very little. That's the kind of cooking that sticks with you. Number 2, spoon bread. If you've never had spoon bread, you're missing out on one of the South's most underrated comfort foods. It's not quite cornbread and not quite pudding. It's this soft, buttery, custardy cross between the two that you literally scoop with a spoon. That's where the name comes from. People in places like Kentucky and Virginia have been baking this up for generations, usually served alongside roasted meats, stews, or greens. The key to spoon bread is cornmeal. Not too coarse, not too fine. You cook it with milk until it thickens, then fold in eggs, butter, sometimes a little sugar, sometimes not. It goes into the oven all smooth and pale and comes out puffed and golden with the smell of warm corn and cream in the air. It's not dense like regular cornbread. It's light, almost like a soufflé, and ridiculously good when it's still warm and the butter just melts right in. Back in the day, this was a side dish that showed up at both weeknight dinners and Sunday feasts. It was simple but elegant, and it made whatever else you were eating feel a little more special. Leftovers were rare. People went back for seconds, maybe thirds. And you better believe, if there was gravy on the table, it found its way onto the spoon bread. It might seem old-fashioned now, but spoon bread's one of those dishes that deserves a comeback. It doesn't take much to make, and it gives you way more comfort than the effort you put in. That's the kind of recipe that never really goes out of style. Number 3, dump cake. Now here's a dessert that totally lives up to its name. Dump cake doesn't require you to mix anything, and honestly, that's part of its charm. This was a 1960s kitchen classic, born from the golden age of convenience cooking. You start with canned fruit or pie filling, cherries, pineapple, peaches, whatever you like, dump it straight into a baking dish. No fuss. Then comes the dry cake mix. Yep, straight from the box. Sprinkle it evenly over the fruit. Don't mix it in, just let it sit there like a layer of sweet, powdery topping. Add some pats of butter on top, and that's it. You throw it in the oven, and while it bakes, magic happens. The butter melts, soaks into the cake mix, and it all transforms into this crispy, buttery, fruity goodness with a texture somewhere between cobbler and cake. It's rich, sweet, and perfect with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. And the best part is how fast it comes together. No bowls to wash, no mixers, no measuring cups. That's why it became such a staple at potlucks, church dinners, and family gatherings. People loved that it was easy, cheap, and made with stuff you usually had in your pantry. It's kind of wild how something so basic can taste so good. And that's the thing. Dump cake isn't fancy, but it's a reminder that dessert doesn't need to be complicated to be satisfying. It's nostalgic, a little kitschy, but always a crowd pleaser. Number 4, chicken alaking. This dish sounds fancy, but it was everyday comfort food in mid-century America. Chicken alaking is all about creamy indulgence. Diced chicken in a thick, rich sauce filled with mushrooms, sometimes green bell peppers or pimentos, served over toast, rice, or egg noodles. It was like the upscale version of chicken stew, creamy, filling, and kind of elegant in that 1950s dining room way. You could find it in school cafeterias, military mess halls, and even on airplane menus, back when airplane food actually tried to be good. But it also showed up in home kitchens, especially when someone had leftover chicken and didn't want to make soup for the third time in a week. The sauce was usually a bechamel base, butter, flour, milk, or sometimes thickened with cream of mushroom soup. You'd saute the vegetables in butter, toss in your chicken, and stir until everything was coated in velvety, golden sauce. Ladled over flaky biscuits or white toast, it felt fancy without being fussy. It might have faded from popularity, but that doesn't mean it's not worth reviving. Chicken a la king is one of those meals that hits that perfect balance. Simple to make, rich in flavor, and endlessly adaptable. Add peas, switch up the seasoning, make it your own. That's the spirit of American cooking in the 20th century. Practical, resourceful, and a little bit indulgent. Number 5, Sunday gravy. Ask any Italian-American family about Sunday gravy, and you'll see faces light up. This wasn't just a meal, it was a ritual. You'd start the sauce early in the morning, usually with onions and garlic sizzling in olive oil. Then came the meat. Sausages, pork neck bones, maybe a beef braciole, sometimes meatballs, all browned and added to the pot. Then came the crushed tomatoes, the red wine, the herbs, and then you wait. This sauce would simmer for hours, filling the whole house with a deep tomatoey aroma that told you something special was happening. Pasta would be boiled right before dinner, maybe rigatoni or spaghetti, and then coated with the rich, meaty gravy that had been cooking all day. It was about more than food. Sunday gravy brought everyone to the table. Grandparents, cousins, neighbors. There was always enough for one more plate. Leftovers were a given, and somehow it always tasted better the next day. That long, slow cooking drew everything together. Not just the flavors, but the people too. And even though it takes time, the actual work is simple. Brown the meat, simmer the sauce, stir once in a while. That's it. But the payoff? A meal that tastes like love and patience and tradition. You don't just eat Sunday gravy, you remember it. Number 6, tuna noodle casserole. This dish has 1950s America written all over it. Canned tuna, egg noodles, cream of mushroom soup. This was dinner magic for families on a budget. Throw it all together in a baking dish, top it with breadcrumbs or crushed potato chips, and bake until bubbly and golden. It's salty, creamy, crunchy, and somehow always comforting. During the post-war years, ingredients like canned fish and condensed soup were household staples. They were cheap, had long shelf lives, and made it easy to feed a lot of people with just a few pantry items. Add a bag of frozen peas or chopped celery if you had it, and boom, a full meal. Tuna noodle casserole isn't glamorous, but it's dependable. It was the kind of dish moms made on a weeknight when they didn't want to cook, but still wanted to give the family something warm. And let's be honest, for a lot of us, it tastes like childhood. Maybe it showed up in a school lunch tray, or maybe grandma served it in a big Pyrex dish. It's the kind of old-school recipe that deserves respect, because it proves you don't need a lot of ingredients or time to make something people genuinely look forward to. Simple, satisfying, and 100% nostalgic. Number 7, sloppy joes. Sloppy joes are a mess in the best way. Ground beef browned in a skillet, drenched in a tangy sweet tomato sauce, then piled onto soft hamburger buns. It's like a barbecue sandwich's laid-back cousin. They exploded in popularity in the 1950s when convenience foods were on the rise and families needed quick meals that kids would actually eat. You could make the sauce from scratch with ketchup, mustard, brown sugar, and Worcestershire, or grab a can of that famous mix and call it a day. Either way, it was cheap, fast, and fed a crowd. They were a staple at sleepovers, camp cafeterias, and weeknight dinners. And sure, they were messy, but that was part of the fun. Napkins were mandatory, but no one really cared. That rich, savory sauce soaking into the bun, perfection. And if you added cheese, or swapped in turkey, or tossed in chopped veggies, no one complained. It was a dish that didn't take itself too seriously. Just like the era it came from, sloppy joes were casual, comforting, and always welcome at the table. Number 8, chicken and biscuits. Think of chicken and biscuits as the easygoing cousin of chicken pot pie. Instead of rolling out crusts or layering dough, you take a creamy, savory chicken filling with peas, carrots, and onions, and top it with big, fluffy biscuits. It bakes all in one dish, and the result is a bubbling, golden-topped dream. This dish was perfect for busy families. You could use rotisserie chicken or leftovers, canned soup for the base, and pre-made biscuit dough. Or, if you had the time, make it all from scratch. It didn't matter. What mattered was the comfort. As it baked, the biscuits soaked up the creamy filling underneath, getting just the right amount of gooey on the bottom and golden on top. Each bite was warm, soft, and full of flavor. It was the kind of meal you served when you wanted to bring everyone together around something hearty and familiar. And just like so many recipes from that time, it's flexible. Add mushrooms, herbs, a little hot sauce, make it yours. But the base idea is timeless. Chicken, biscuits, and comfort, all in one pan. Number 9, macaroni and cheese. Mac and cheese is one of those dishes that feels like a hug in a bowl. Sure, versions of it existed long before the 20th century. Even Thomas Jefferson brought back a recipe from Europe, but it wasn't until the 1930s that it really became a staple in American homes. That's when the boxed version hit the shelves. Kraft Dinner. Bright yellow, super creamy, and ready in under 10 minutes. It was cheap, fast, and kids loved it. No surprise, it became a weeknight favorite during the Depression and after. But even beyond the box, homemade mac and cheese took off too. Elbow macaroni cooked until just tender, coated in a cheese sauce made from scratch, usually with sharp cheddar, butter, and milk. Some folks added breadcrumbs on top for that extra crunch. Others stirred in bits of ham, peas, or even hot dogs when times were tough or they needed to stretch the meal. What made mac and cheese so beloved was its versatility. Whether it came out of a box or a baking dish, it hit the same comfort zone. It wasn't pretentious, it didn't need a garnish, and it always showed up at potlucks, picnics, or on the side of a meatloaf dinner. People grew up on this stuff, and even now, decades later, it's still one of the ultimate go-to comfort foods. Number 10, goulash. American goulash isn't anything like the Hungarian stew it's named after. It's more like a hearty, one-pot pasta dish with a soul of its own. This version took off in the mid-20th century, especially in the Midwest. It's simple. Ground beef, elbow macaroni, onions, garlic, and a tomato-based sauce. Sometimes people added corn or bell peppers, and you might even find a little Worcestershire or hot sauce in the mix. The whole thing cooks in one pot, which made it perfect for busy moms trying to feed a family on a budget. It's one of those meals where you'd start with browning the beef and onions, toss in the spices, then pour in the pasta and sauce, let it all simmer together until the noodles soak up the flavors, and the whole kitchen smells like dinner's ready. There's something incredibly satisfying about a big scoop of goulash on a plate. It's not fancy, but it's filling. It sticks to your ribs, and it stretches. You can feed a big crowd without spending much. That's why it was so common at church suppers, school lunches, and family dinners. Even better the next day, goulash was the kind of meal that aged well, both in the fridge and in people's memories. Number 11, chicken divan. Chicken divan might sound like a dish you'd find in a high-end restaurant, but it was actually born in a New York City hotel back in the 1930s, the divan parisien. Eventually, it worked its way into American kitchens as a creamy casserole that became wildly popular in the 1950s and 60s. The basic formula is simple but comforting. Cooked chicken layered over steamed broccoli, smothered in a creamy sauce that usually includes mayo, cheese, and a splash of lemon juice or sherry for brightness. The whole thing gets topped with breadcrumbs or crushed crackers and baked until it bubbles and turns golden on top. It was a great way to use up leftover chicken, and the combination of rich sauce and slightly crispy topping made it feel just a little bit fancy. Moms liked it because it looked impressive but didn't take much work. You could prepare it ahead of time and just pop it in the oven when guests arrived. It was a dinner party favorite, especially when paired with a salad and rolls. Chicken divan had staying power because it was adaptable. Some folks swapped the sauce for condensed soup, others used cheddar or parmesan, or even added rice or noodles to make it a one-dish meal. However you made it, it brought that creamy, cozy, crowd-pleasing energy that defined a lot of mid-century American cooking. Number 12, beef stroganoff. When beef stroganoff landed in American kitchens in the 1950s, it brought a little bit of old-world sophistication to everyday dinners. Originating in Russia, the dish was adapted by American home cooks to suit local tastes and pantry ingredients. At its core, it's sautéed strips of beef cooked with mushrooms and onions, all coated in a tangy, creamy sour cream-based sauce. Served over egg noodles, rice, or even mashed potatoes, it struck a perfect balance between rich and comforting. It felt slightly exotic, but wasn't hard to make, which made it perfect for housewives looking to bring something new to the table. Back then, convenience was king, so a lot of versions used cream of mushroom soup instead of fresh ingredients. It might not have been authentic, but it was fast and easy, and nobody complained when dinner tasted that good. Stroganov became a go-to dish for entertaining, especially with a glass of wine and a salad on the side. What really made it a keeper was that creamy sauce. It clung to the noodles, wrapped around every bite of beef, and made even the pickiest eaters clean their plates. Beef stroganoff may have started in a Russian palace, but it found a forever home in the American casserole era. Number 13, baked ziti. Baked ziti was, and still is, the Italian-American answer to, what should we make that'll feed everyone and taste amazing? It's everything you want in a comfort dish. Pasta, marinara, melted cheese, all baked together until it's bubbling and golden on top. At its simplest, it's cooked ziti pasta mixed with tomato sauce, layered with ricotta or cottage cheese, mozzarella, maybe a little parmesan, and baked until everything fuses into one warm, gooey, irresistible casserole. Sometimes meat gets added, Italian sausage, ground beef, to make it even heartier. Other times, it stays meatless, perfect for a Friday dinner or a potluck side. This dish became popular in Italian-American households in the 20th century, especially in big cities like New York, where Italian communities passed recipes down through generations. It was ideal for Sunday dinners, holidays, or feeding a crowd without a lot of prep. You could make it ahead, refrigerate it, and pop it in the oven whenever you were ready. Baked ziti holds up because it's simple and satisfying. It doesn't pretend to be something it's not, just rich, cheesy, tomatoey goodness in every bite. Leftovers? Even better the next day. It's one of those dishes where forgotten just doesn't feel right, because the moment you smell it baking, all the memories come rushing back. Number 14, jambalaya. Jambalaya is the kind of dish that brings the whole kitchen to life. Originally from Louisiana, it blends Creole and Cajun traditions into one spicy, smoky, totally unforgettable one-pot meal. And the best part? It's flexible. You make it with what you've got. The base is always the same, rice cooked in a seasoned broth with a mix of meats and vegetables. You'll often see smoked sausage like andouille, chicken, maybe shrimp, and then the holy trinity of Cajun cooking: onions, bell peppers, and celery. Tomatoes go in for Creole versions, while Cajun jambalaya skips them and leans heavier on the spice. It's a dish built on layers of flavor. Everything's cooked in one big pot, letting all the ingredients come together as the rice absorbs every bit of that seasoned goodness. It's fiery, filling, and full of personality, just like the culture it comes from. Jambalaya found its way into kitchens all over America by the mid-20th century, especially as people traveled or moved and brought their regional recipes with them. It became a party dish, a weeknight meal, even a camping favorite because it was easy to scale up or down and didn't need a side dish. Everything's already in the pot. Number 15, chili mac. If you've ever stood in front of the stove, torn between making chili or mac and cheese, chili mac is your answer. This dish combines the bold flavors of chili, ground beef, beans, tomatoes, spices, with the creamy satisfaction of macaroni. It's spicy, cheesy, and packed with comfort. Popularized in the 1970s and 1980s, especially in school cafeterias and military chow halls, chili mac was cheap, filling, and easy to love. You'd brown some beef, stir in chili powder, garlic, and onions, then add in tomato sauce or diced tomatoes. Once the mixture was bubbling, you'd fold in cooked elbow macaroni and a generous helping of shredded cheese. The result was messy in the best way. It wasn't refined, but it didn't need to be. Kids devoured it. Adults came back for seconds. It had all the flavor of chili, but with the cozy texture of pasta. Some families made it extra spicy, others toned it down. Some even added jalapenos or corn to stretch it further. Chili mac is a great example of how American home cooking thrived on improvisation, taking two favorites and combining them into something even better. It's fast, affordable, and most importantly, really satisfying. Number 16, stuffed peppers. Stuffed peppers are one of those dishes that have stood the test of time, not because they're fancy, but because they're smart, filling, and incredibly satisfying. You take a bell pepper, cut the top off, clean it out, and suddenly it's not just a vegetable anymore, it's a container for dinner. The classic American version, especially popular in the early to mid-20th century, is stuffed with ground beef, white rice, and tomato sauce. Simple ingredients that most families had on hand. The meat is usually browned with onions and maybe a bit of garlic, then mixed with cooked rice and seasoned tomato sauce. Sometimes folks would add cheese, corn, or herbs if they wanted to stretch it or jazz it up. Then everything goes into the pepper, which is placed upright in a casserole dish and baked until the pepper softens and the filling gets all juicy and bubbling inside. You'd pull it out of the oven and maybe sprinkle a little more cheese on top, because why not? 1 stuffed pepper per person. That was dinner. It's a meal that looks put together but doesn't actually take much work. And because it's all baked together, the flavors meld in that perfect homey way. This dish was especially loved by busy moms in the 50s and 60s. It was easy to prep ahead, affordable, and made great leftovers. Even better, it looked kind of impressive on the table. Like you really tried. And maybe you did. Or maybe you just knew how to make something comforting out of what you already had. Number 17, shepherd's pie. Shepherd's pie might have started in the UK, but American kitchens made it their own. During the 20th century, especially in post-war years, this was a way to stretch meat and vegetables into a full, stick-to-your-ribs kind of dinner. Traditionally, it's made with ground lamb, but in the US, ground beef took over. It's one of those everything-in-one-dish meals that just makes sense. You cook the beef with onions, maybe some garlic, and toss in peas, carrots, corn, whatever's in the fridge or freezer. Then you layer it in a casserole dish and top the whole thing with creamy mashed potatoes. Smooth them out or leave them a little rustic, it doesn't matter. Some folks sprinkled cheese on top too, just to get that golden crust. Then it bakes until the edges are bubbling and the top is lightly browned. There's something deeply comforting about digging into that first spoonful. The creamy potatoes, the savory meat, and veggie layer underneath. It's not fancy, but it hits the spot every time. And like so many great one-pot meals, it was practical. It used leftovers, it fed a big family, it could be reheated easily. It also became a favorite for Sunday night dinners or cold weather meals. Because when the kitchen smells like roasted meat and potatoes, nobody complains. Shepherd's pie is humble, yes, but it's also dependable. It's the kind of food that makes you feel grounded, like home is right there in front of you on the plate. Number 18, Spanish rice. This dish has roots in Mexican and Southwestern American cooking, but it really found its way into mainstream kitchens in the 20th century, especially in areas like Texas, New Mexico, and Southern California. Spanish rice is flavorful, colorful, and versatile. It works as a side dish or the main event, depending on what you pair it with. It starts with white rice that's toasted in a bit of oil. That step's key because it gives the rice a nutty flavor and keeps it from going mushy. Then you saute onions, garlic, and maybe bell peppers before adding tomato sauce or crushed tomatoes, chicken broth, and a blend of spices like cumin, paprika, or chili powder. Some people toss in peas, corn, or jalapenos too, depending on the vibe. The rice simmers slowly, soaking up all that flavor and turning a deep reddish orange. By the time it's done, it's tender, savory, and just the right amount of spicy. It pairs beautifully with grilled chicken, enchiladas, tacos, or even scrambled eggs in the morning. But honestly, it's delicious all by itself. In the 1970s and 80s, Spanish rice started showing up more in casseroles and one-pot dinners. You'd mix it with ground beef, black beans, or shredded cheese, and bake it as a hearty family meal. It was budget-friendly, full of flavor, and didn't leave a pile of dishes behind. Even now, it's still a go-to for people who want big flavor without a lot of effort. That's what makes it timeless. It delivers every time, whether you're serving a crowd or just making lunch for one. Number 19, ham and bean soup. Nothing says old-school comfort like a big pot of ham and bean soup simmering on the stove. It's the kind of dish that feels like a warm hug on a cold day, rich, savory, and made with love. This soup became a staple during the Depression and wartime eras, when no scrap of food went to waste. Got a leftover ham bone from Sunday dinner? That's your base. Some dried beans in the pantry? You're halfway there. The process is slow and simple. You soak the beans overnight, usually navy or Great Northern, then simmer them for hours with the ham bone, onions, celery, carrots, garlic, and bay leaves. As it cooks, the beans soften, the ham falls off the bone, and the broth turns thick and flavorful. Some people blend part of the soup for a creamier texture, others like it rustic and chunky. It's budget-friendly, nutrient-rich, and seriously satisfying. And the smell? It fills the whole house with that cozy, savory aroma that makes you want to grab a blanket and eat by the fire. Cornbread on the side? Yes, please. Ham and bean soup also freezes well, so folks used to make big batches and stretch them across the week. And you didn't need exact measurements. You worked with what you had. That's the beauty of it. It's not about perfection. It's about making something hearty and real out of simple ingredients. This dish might not get the spotlight anymore, but it's definitely worth remembering, because meals like this are what gave past generations strength and flavor. Number 20, cabbage roll casserole. Now here's a dish that takes all the flavor of traditional cabbage rolls, but skips the rolling and stuffing. Cabbage roll casserole was the answer for home cooks who loved the taste, but didn't have time to wrap every leaf like a little present. Instead, they layered chopped cabbage with seasoned ground beef, rice, onions, and a tomato-based sauce, then baked it all together like a lasagna. It's a one-pan wonder, easy to assemble, filling, and full of old-world flavor. The cabbage softens and absorbs the sauce, the meat and rice cook through together, and by the end, it's this tender, savory, melt-in-your-mouth meal. And it feeds a crowd, which made it a go-to for big families, potlucks, and Sunday dinners in the 60s and 70s. Some versions added cheese on top. Others added a bit of vinegar or brown sugar to the sauce for that sweet-sour balance. But no matter the spin, it always delivered the same thing: warm, comforting satisfaction with every bite. It's the kind of dish you could prep ahead of time, cover with foil, and pop in the oven after work. And it didn't cost much. Cabbage, rice, and ground meat were always affordable. That made it perfect for working-class families trying to stretch their grocery dollar. Even now, it holds up. Because when you break it down, it's really just the ultimate comfort food. Rich, hearty, and cooked with care. Dishes like this aren't trendy. They're timeless.